In this video, I'm going to be talking about MLB owners, and I'm going to ask the simple question is, do they care about their players' health? So being an owner of a professional sports team is hard, and they often get criticized for the smallest things. If you don't spend money, the fan base will call you cheap, and if you spend too much money, other fan bases will say that you're not trying to win championships. The end goal for any team is to win a championship, but for some owners, that just seems to be a little bit more of the case than others. So there's a problem going on right now where teams aren't trying to win right now. So there's a common strategy where you'll rebuild, which means you're going to lose a lot up front and you're going to get draft picks, and then you're going to look to get better in the next few years. But the problem is that for competitive reasons, it's not good for in the moment. So a couple of examples are this year's Oakland Athletics. Their season has been a train wreck. They've only won 50 games out of their 162, and a mind-blowing stat is that their entire roster cost the same as just one player in Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is making $43.3 million, and the entire A's roster is less than that. Now, that is just an absurd number, and why is that? That's because Oakland is not willing to put in money for free agency. They are trying to lose. Their plan is to relocate and stay as cheap as you can until that happens so that they can make money. And it's gotten so bad that even the Oakland A's fans have done a reverse boycott where they actually went to the game and they started chanting "Sell the team," like in this clip right here. This is just one example of a team that didn't really want to win and was just making the overall league a little bit worse. Now, the owner did not care about the players on the team. On the other hand, you also have teams that are on the opposite side, where they're actually overspending money and they're actually being too good, at least on paper. So a couple of teams that are kind of spending a lot more money than everyone else are the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and then most recently the Rangers. Now, it's not always a guarantee that if you spend the money, you're going to win, but for most of the time, you are going to win a lot more having a better payroll. Now, the question I want to ask, though, is MLB has been trying to implement these new rules. So with the pitch clock, the bigger bases, the banning of the shift, and all the other rules, the expanded playoffs, everything that they've added in the last few years, who do they actually benefit? Do they benefit the player or do they benefit the fan? And along with the fan, do they benefit the owners themselves just for profit? So looking at the rules, with the bigger bases, the pitch clock, almost none of the players really seem to like it that much from the standpoint of just playing the game. So you're really looking at it for being a fan-oriented change. The only people that are really going to benefit from this is the fans that get to watch a game in a little bit less time. But for the players, is that less time in between pitches or less time in between plays, is that going to be more taxing to where they're going to have more injuries? So one question I wanted to ask is, what is more important for the owner? The team to have success or the players to be healthy? So a couple of ideas that I'd had for trying to implement keeping the players healthier and keeping your star players actually on the field. So my first idea for this would be to add a 5-player pool on top of the 26-man roster. Now, it would work just like the 26-man roster that it is now, but you would also have 5 additional players that would travel with the team and could be activated for any game that you want. Now, they have to be activated before the game happens, but you can substitute any of the players on that 5-player pool with 26-man roster, and you don't have to worry about the toll that it takes whenever you have to send players up and down. So this would hopefully make it to where you could cycle through players if they're needing an off day, or if they're just slightly injured but they don't want to be put on the injured list. This would, I think, be a great change for baseball because they would really allow to see younger players getting up to the majors a little bit faster and not having to play the full capability of their position. If they could just be on the roster for a weekend and then go back to just traveling with the team, that could potentially be helpful for the team because they could get the player more experience but not have to rely on him to play every single day. And the same can be said for older players that might not be able to play every single day and may only be able to play a couple of days a week. So I think this would be a great addition to the game. I think it would really emphasize the importance of keeping your players healthy. With all the injuries that have been going around, keeping them healthy really is important. So another idea that is not really as likely is the idea of just shortening the amount of innings in a game or the amount of games in a season. So this is definitely not likely because it's going to cause a lot of controversy and it's going to make a lot of owners lose money because they're selling or they're losing games. The idea behind this would be shortening the game to 7 innings and cutting out the 8th and 9th inning and basically making the 7th inning the new 9th inning. This would also help with starters not having to go as deep because if you didn't have a 9 inning game, there would be no point for your starter to go 7 innings. So your starter may only have to go 4 or 5 innings and you can go to the bullpen. This would make it to where you can keep your guys really healthy and you don't have to worry about it as much. And then the alternative is the 120 game season. So instead of the 162, it could be a 120. That would give you about 42 more off days in between the season. So you would have a lot more chances to have an off day so that you don't have like these lingering issues that cause problems later on because you just didn't have an off day. So I think that this isn't likely, like I said, but I think that it's something that would still help, and it's not something I want to happen, but it's something that could happen that would still help. And then my last idea was to have infinite subs. So whenever you have a player on the bench, he has to stay in the game, and you lose your star player if you bring that bench guy into the game. So the idea here is you could have your star out of the game for the unimportant parts so that you can save him for the important parts. There's no reason to have your star player on the field whenever you have a 10-run lead in the 6th inning, but if you wanted to, you could substitute him with the bench guy, but if the game gets closer, then you have to stick with the bench guy. Versus in this idea, you could bring your star player back on the field, and you could even just make it an inning by inning basis, where you have a couple innings where you give your main guys an inning off. So the way that this would work is that anyone on the bench could come in at any point, but the starters for the lineup have to stay in their batting spot. So if a guy comes in to play in the field for him, you have the option of either keeping the guys at bat, or you could give the guy at bat on the bench for any one slot. So the way that this would work is every rotation of the lineup, you could have any guy on the bench take over for any spot. But they can't switch from that spot until they go through the lineup one more time. So this would allow a little bit more flexibility and creativity. You could really see a lot of platoons open up here, and you could see a lot more people on the roster that making an impact because the bench guys are actually going to be important, unlike in modern baseball where you typically don't see a lot of the bench. And this would also make it to where you can pitch run or pitch hit or do anything with your catcher. You're no longer confined to just having everyone play every single inning. And I think that if you have the stars on the field, they should be playing at all times, and there shouldn't be a situation where you can't have your star player on the field because you already used them. So hopefully you'll agree with some of these changes and consider that maybe owners need to consider more player health rather than speed of the game. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it.